So good morning, everyone. So we had this Shabbos yesterday, the reading from the Parsha concerning all the festivals. And there's a question raised, why does it happen that we have in Parshat Pinchas all the festivals when it occurs Bein HaMetzarim, in the time when we commemorate everything sad about the people of Israel. We commemorate from the 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Av the sin of the golden calf, breaking of the tablets of stone, the sin of the spies which caused them to wander 40 years in the desert, then the destruction of the first and the second temple, and even all the most cruel times of the year, from the Crusaders and banishment of Jews from England and France. The time of the Crusaders was on Tisha B'Av, the banishment of Jews, and the end of the golden period of Spanish Jewry, which ended with destruction and Inquisition, was also on Tisha B'Av. And the First World War began on Tisha B'Av, which was the preparation, unfortunately, for the Second World War and the Holocaust. It's the worst time. And that we commemorate on Parshas Pinchas, which mentions all the festivals. So the answer is, all the suffering that's come upon the people of Israel is all intended for a good purpose, to remove impurity and bring us nearer to Hashem. And this applies specifically that the whole concept of the redemption, which means also the coming of the Mashiach, is compared by the prophets to pregnancy, which is often painful, which becomes most painful before the birth. That's the Chavli Mashiach, which is spoken about in previous shiurim, the birth pangs of the Mashiach, which we're going through today. And therefore, in the future, as it always says in the prophets, the period of Bein HaMetzarim, between the straits, is going to become the festival of the redemption. So the Yom Tov will be the 70th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, will be a Yom Tov, that's what's called the Moed. In between B'chol HaMoed, the festival of the redemption. So that's hinted at in the fact that it takes place in Parshas Pinchas. But in the previous year we saw something amazing. We know the biblical prophecies are being fulfilled today, but the details of how it happened, it's just unbelievable that we have an ancient midrash, which we spoke about in the last talk, by Rabbi Eliezer Gadol, who brings in the name of Rabbi Ishmael that there are 15 things which are going to take place to the Bnei Ishmael. Bnei Ishmael are the Muslim peoples, and they're going to concentrate their hostility to the people of Israel, that they want to become the rulers of the Temple Mount, which they are, de facto they're ruling the Temple Mount and ruining also Jewish artifacts that exist there, and they're in charge. In addition, he mentions there, long before Islam existed, that there's going to come from the Muslim people 15, you can call them curses, 15 aspects of their extreme cruelty and falsehood, whereby they want to drive the people out from our land, and they want to take it over. And we already went into this to some extent. Now, in order to understand this more deeply, these 15 things already mentioned have their parallel also in the Gemara. Gemara brings early sources concerning the evils of the Muslim peoples in general, and then it says before the coming of the Mashiach, which is called Ikvas the Mashiach, the tracks. We can already see we're near the end of the pregnancy, that the pains coming from the people of Israel are very strong. At the same time, we can see it's a birth, because when it says in the Chumash, there's going to come a time when the scattered remnants of the people of Israel will be gathered together again in the land of Israel. And that's what's going on the last 100 years in a fantastic fashion and with many miracles. If we think about the large vista of Jewish history and what's happening in the world, it's indeed a fulfillment of the prophecy of the Chumash and all the prophets. And we're seeing it, we're living in the middle of it, with all types of hidden miracles, which those who have true belief in Hashem, they can see them. But unfortunately, there are also many negative aspects. It's the pain. And it's interesting that in the Gemara, and this Gemara is a brighter, it goes back to the time of the Mishnah, in a few places, it also mentions 15 negative aspects about the people of Israel, also at the time before the Mashiach was expected. And this is paralleled by the 15 evil acts and attitudes of the Bnei Ishmael, of the Muslim peoples, which is not brought in the Gemara as such, it's brought in the chapters of Rabbi Eliezer, but it's also from the Tanaitic period. That means it goes back to the time of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, shortly after the time of the compilation of the Mishnah. They were great Tanaim, great teachers, and they foresaw what is happening in front of our eyes. So, I'm going to give you here, I want to do with you now, this is taken even from the Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah of Sota, because from the Mishnaic period, we have here the Ikvazit Mashiach, which you'll see on page 382, halfway down. So we already saw this in part, but I think you have to see it black on white to understand what's going on here, even to appreciate that we are very fortunate that we could see the hand of divine providence, which many people don't see, unfortunately, but we in Yeshiva can see it by looking at these texts. I mean, from the Mishnah, which comes even before the period of the Gemara. It mentions, I'm just starting this famous passage, which is really just 2/3 down. Be'ikvoit Mashiach, when the tracks of the Mashiach can already be seen. So the first evil quality, that means the pain, the inner pains of the people of Israel, how we find, if we want to define the Jewish nation, chutzpah yizkei, arrogance increases. It will increase greatly. Or some say chutzpah yizkei, arrogance will make people great. In other words, the leaders of the Jewish people are basically people who have a great deal of arrogance, and they want to take over leadership, and they battle for the leadership, and if they've got some position in the government, they want a higher position, and they clothe it all in demagogy. And they are, in many other areas, we also find even children unfortunately raised to become arrogant. Even people find, even more than in other ages, that the younger generation no longer have respect for the older generation. That's all part of chutzpah yazgeh. And then we have, it says that with the advent of the Messiah, presumptuousness shall wax great. Presumptuous people. Instead of people following a loving and peaceful relationship with one another, there's a lot of arrogance in the spirit of the nation. They think, the more that you strive to outdo your competitors, the greater you'll become. Then it says another aspect, that V'yoker ya'amir. Now it says that produce shall soar in a costliness. That most commentators say V'yoker ya'amir means that honor will reach its pinnacles. The pursuit for honor, the pursuit for fame. That's what gets people going. They're only interested to be given a lot of honor and appreciation. And for that, they'll do anything. They'll make a survey of what makes them most popular in order to get positions of a higher leadership. Then it says, there's plenty of produce of substance, like from vines, will give forth their fruit. Nevertheless, that wine shall yield its fruit, but it'll be very costly. Which many say there'll be substance abuse. People will drink so much, there'll be alcoholism will take hold of the people of Israel. It's interesting that about 100 years ago, a survey was made in America concerning alcoholism, and people who would never drink alcohol. And it's well known there were periods in the American society where alcoholism was rampant, and some states said the best thing is to forbid it. Others say if you forbid it, it'll go underground and become stronger. And they made different surveys, and they found to their surprise that Jews on the whole, they all did make use of alcohol without becoming alcoholics.
When?
About over 150 years ago. I know all about this because one of the first students came to the Yeshivat, was a doctor, who made a speciality of the studies of alcoholism. While he was in the Yeshivat, he found it difficult to learn Gemara. Gemara didn't suit him. He was a very clever student. So I said to him, you go and investigate alcoholism in the Bible and the Talmud. And he wrote very good articles, Alcoholism, Bible and the Talmud. So what was in the Yeshiva, which I think used for an extra doctorate. So he quotes all these things. And then they came to the conclusion to go and get people never to touch alcohol. They often break out in their periods of become dead. They become addicted alcoholics. And the way of the Jews is much better. Why are the Jews better? Because the Jews, they do permit it, but they connect it with religious occasions, social occasions. Yeah, they drink a bit of alcohol, be it a schnapps, be it a bit of Bromfen, brandy, When will they have it? At the Brit Milah, or on the Shabbos, or at the wedding. Then they do it. They connect it with something rich or something social. And as a result, it makes them happy, but don't go overboard. And that's become accustomed to that already for many generations. Therefore, there's no alcoholics. And yet, they aren't, those amongst them, those that separate. There's some individuals who fringe elements, so then for them it's better if they feel that this method doesn't work of sublimation and channeling it, then they're also advised, okay, like we find by the Nazir, don't have any alcohol at all for a time, till you learn how to balance it. But in the time before the Mashiach, it doesn't help anymore. There's alcoholics, there's drug addicts, addiction takes over. Then it says that Hamalchut, the government of the people of Israel, will be heretical. In other words, they will be agnostic and some even atheists. I don't want to mention the name of God. What's happening? Then it says, the people on the border, they go from place to place, no one takes notice. The people on the border, this means the people who make a border between Jews and Gentiles, or between Jewish influence and Gentile influence. Even the people on the borders of the land of Israel, and they try to defend it, what happens to them? They are made, even by the government itself, to leave the borders, as a result of which the infiltration of our enemies, be they physical or spiritual, becomes strong. And they go from town to town, and they are not favored. Which, or it could be taken as a symbol, but what we see constantly in this age, before the Mashiach, is that symbols become reality, no longer symbols. Because what happened with Gush Katif, we see they were on the border and they helped the people of Israel to protect ourselves against our enemies from Gaza. So instead of, through giving back the land, driving out the Jews, instead of being proud of the fact what they're doing, building it up and helping us, they're driven out. And it's just now, it's 10 years since they were driven out. And there have been reports in all the mass media that they haven't found a home yet. They go from place to place, but government doesn't help them. They don't have, many of them, homes. They don't have, many of them, any occupation as they had previously. It's a very difficult situation. Then the wisdom of those who call themselves Talmid Chachamim becomes rotten. That there are many, this scholarship, or at least the saintliness, has become rotten. It doesn't often lead to saintliness. It's a rottenness of character, corruption. And those who really face sin, they're despised. They're considered to be the enemies of those whose life is opposed to fear sin, the sinners. They despise those who are religious, and also truth. the truth of Torah becomes something which has disappeared. And Narim Pnezikim Yabino, so the younger people, they go and put the elders to shame. Those who still want to follow certain traditions, so the young ones say, well, we don't need them. And even reaches the level when the older, more experienced ones, they've got to stand up in front of the young ones. And even in families, the children, they go and disrespect the father, a daughter against a mother, a daughter-in-law against a mother-in-law. And families become disrupted. And Pnei Adog Pnei HaKelef, face of the generation of the leaders, and they have the face like a dog, which explains the following. How did a person become a leader today in a so-called democratic society? So a person who wants to become, let's say, president, or just even make sure he's got a good platform, the government, he makes a survey. Do the people, let's say in Israel, do we have a majority that wants to go to the right, or a majority that wants to go to the left? And they make thorough surveys and come to the conclusion the majority want to go to the right. No, I think we all know more or less what the right-wing parties mean today. Therefore, they put on a platform for the right. Not necessarily they themselves think the right is right, but because they want to have a place in the government or they want to keep the place in the government. Therefore, they turn right. And what happens then? They make a survey and they see that people want to go to the left, so they go and change. Even in the middle of the election period, in the middle of the term which were elected, halfway through, they see that the Sekarim, we say, Sekarim in Hebrew it's called, they say, Kol Seker U'Sheker, you know. Every statistical conclusions are false conclusions, some people say. But still, democratically, it's the only way you can make a decision. So if in the middle they want to see more people go to the left than the right, more of the important people and so on, and you want to stay in your seat, then you have to turn to the left, because they see that's what people want. So it's not that you're a leader, you're being led by what? By Vox Populi, Vox Dei, that's how they call it in international relations. The voice of the people is the voice of God. Therefore, most of the people want to go left, you go left. That's just what the dog does. The dog who's got a master, and he always wants to be in front. Yeah? The master will be holding on the leash, the dog will pull him. The dog goes in front. He wants to always, the dog is a bit arrogant as well, and therefore he wants to be seen as the leader. But what does he do? He knows he can't go and force his master to go like he wants. The master won't let him. Therefore he looks back, just a little look, or even able to smell it. Dogs have a good sense of smell. He says, oh, my master wants to go to the right. So therefore he goes in front of him to the right. When he sees the master wants to turn left, then in front of him he goes to the left. So the dog, as it were, leads the people. Yeah? But the truth is, that is the master who leads. It's the people who lead the leader. The master thinks he is the one who's leading, like the dog. But the dog is not leading. The dog looks back. What does my master want? So it turns out that the heads of state in Israel, that are going on all the time, and the way in which they make their coalitions, they want to find out which way can get the majority. So it happened, mamash like this happened, with the most right-wing member of the Knesset, who existed since the beginning of the state, who reached quite a high position. And then he even became prime minister. Because the tendency was to the right, considering the situation. And then right in the middle, he became the leader of the left, in the middle of his term. And he was the one who drove Gush Katif away from that beautiful border land of Israel. Because he saw that the pressures were too strong on the left side. They want to make sure he remains the prime minister. So therefore, an extreme right-wing leader, anyone, I knew him well. I often spoke with him 30 years. So he was very right-wing, then he turned right to the left. That's it. And the son is ashamed of his father, and on whom can we rely? On our Father in heaven. And some say that's our mistake of those who read this Breita, that we say, if things are so bad, we just have to turn to Hashem and say, Hashem, please change the situation. Well, of course we should do that, but that's also a failing, if that's all we do. We say, the only one who can allow him is our Father in heaven. But our Father in heaven told us something. He told us to improve our character. And therefore, we have to change. And as a result, Hashem will indeed help us. Because if we live in an atmosphere, in a society of impurity, we have to do everything possible to become pure. And if we ourselves try from below, then Hashem will help us from above. And that's why, look here, to continue straight away in this Mishnah of Pinchas ben Yair. He says, in such a time, you've got to say to yourself, let us go to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is midot. The root of all problems of an individual person, of a family, and of society and of the world is not using sufficiently our conscience, the Tzelem Elokim given to us, which has been given to us by Hashem and is there in every human being. And also, more than that, because it's too difficult for mankind to live on the basis of the Tzelem Elokim inside because of the force of external life, which makes us think life is to be defined through the physical dimensions only, and we forget about our spiritual personality that remains forever. So therefore Hashem has revealed to us how to develop the conscience. He showed it to Noach in order to come to mankind. Then he showed to Avraham Avinu, extended it. And he showed it, again, to the nation of Israel, but the nation of Israel to which all mankind was invited to participate. They all had the ability at that time to become part of creating or recreating the Gan Eden. But they failed. And the people of Israel, we accepted it. Even after we'd accepted it, which is the program of this globe being a Gan Eden, we also failed. And Hashem said, I'm going to make a new nation from Moshe Rabbeinu. It didn't fail. But Moshe wouldn't accept. He said, no, then block me out, forget about me. I'm only here for the people. So Hashem, He gave us the possibility to continue working hard to reach what it says here, to the midot. So here we have, I suppose most of you know this from the Sefer, which is based on this. You'll tell me yourself what's the name of the Sefer. Anyone knows? Of the bride of Pinchas ben Yair, who was a great saint. Yeah? The father-in-law of Shimon Yochai. Anyway, he says like this. In some versions, because it's also brought in the Gemara, You start with Torah. He said, first you've got to, if you want to improve your midot, very, very difficult. But if you've got the Torah is really the program of, it's what it means a teaching, but it also means giving direction. It's not teaching about the physical world, what it is, not even teaching us analysis of the psychological world, but it is the teaching of how to improve ourselves, how to develop the conscience. That's the Torah. It's guidance. It brings it back to the level of Gan Eden, if you really do it. So that if a person puts his mind and heart into what the Torah demands, he recognizes it, like there's another saying of the sages, Lo nitnu ha-mitzvot ela l'tzaref ben et-abriot. The mitzvot were given. Why were they given? Why were the mitzvot given? Why do you think the mitzvot were given? Why does Hashem make commandments? He made them to purify the human character. The mitzvot are the method whereby the character can be improved. So therefore you have to develop your characteristics through the Torah. One is the result, to be energetic. Actually, in another version you have Zehirot first. Zehirot, to be careful, to avoid evil deeds. And then to be energetic in fulfilling all the mitzvot of kindness or of connection with Hashem. It's not good enough just to do them automatically. No, Zehirot means to have a feeling of being careful. Careful not to offend people, careful not to harm anybody else. And then to use all the energy to reach the result. So then we carry on, or zeal. Zeal leads to cleanliness, cleanliness leads to purity, and purity to self-restraint, and self-restraint to sanctity, and sanctity leads to humility, and humility leads to the fear of sin, and the fear of sin leads to piety, and piety leads to divine intuition, and divine intuition leads to Ruach HaKodesh. It's a bit high, it's the Holy Spirit, and that leads to Tchiat Hamir, resurrection of the dead. And that will come through Eliyahu, of blessed memory. So all these things have their basis in the Tanakh. You study it. The last one, because the last prophecy is that we have to return to the Torah, and the one who will be the non-material power is the power of Eliyahu Navi that continues with the people of Israel, just as he was able to revive the dead. So that will become the future of the people of Israel, which you can learn in two ways. You can learn it more literally, that indeed the whole power of the divine image will give people a close connection with Hashem, that's Ruach HaKodesh, and then will come the time when the spiritual personality, which continues after death, will again have a form of a physical aspect. That means human beings will return to be on the level of Adam and Chava in Gan Eden, where also they were able to live an eternal life, which is a combination of the pure spiritual being with certain physical aspects. However, it will be a different level, a higher level. First higher level will be war and evil instincts will become sublimated. There will be no more war. People recognize that we have a special task to develop the knowledge of God on this globe. And some will take it in the Tchiat HaMetim as described by Yechezkel, when the bones become revived. And there's a specific reference to what happens to the nation of Israel in the land of Israel. That although they're dried up of any Jewish content, and any spiritual content, it'll all be revived. Now, I think the main point of the 15 qualities of evil and the following by Pinchas Ben Yair is to tell us that the way to change it is through Musa. Because this concept is also almost 15 points. If you take also the variants of these steps, you add them all up together, what it says in different parts of the Gemara, in Sanhedrin, Avodah Zarah. So it teaches us that the answer to all our problems today is an increase in character improvement. Has to be introduced into our education on a very strong level. It's like Rabbi Yisrael Zalanta, who emphasized the Musa, and one of the classics that he recommended was The Path of the Just. It's also recommended by the Gaon of Vilna to a very high level, which is a development of this Breita. Someone asked him, I've only got half an hour to learn every day. I'm so busy with my livelihood. What shall I learn? What's the most important thing to learn? What would you answer?
Musa.
Somebody asked you the question. Why?
Musa.
Musa, yeah. So that was the answer. He said, if you learn half an hour Musa, you'll surely find another hour. You'll find an extra hour. So you can learn other things as well. In the extra hour, you should go and learn Shnayis, Halachot. And maybe gradually you'll find more and more hours. But if you don't learn Musa, then you'll learn something else. It's not going to have an impact. You've got to improve your motivation. So therefore, to improve your motivation, you recognize that the ultimate of life is saintliness, and you're so far removed from it. So therefore, go learn Musa. Then you'll see Musa in the other subjects that you study. You'll see how the mitzvot, even if you're dealing with things which have to do with even criminal law, but there's always an ethical teaching behind it that can be applied to your own situation. But now, in general, what we said in the previous year is the amazing fact as follows. That if you study more carefully, the 15 terrible plagues that the Muslims bring upon the Jewish people and the friends of the Jewish people today, which are all mentioned already by Rabbi Shmuel, who lived hundreds of years before Islam, and he mentions them all, then you'll see that the 15 negative qualities of the people of Israel in the Golos of Ishmael, they are the negative qualities that are developed in our own nation to teach us, if we will put right those 15 negative qualities, which Musa can help, then we will find that the Bnei Ishmael, they'll do teshuvah, they'll respond to us with penitence. As it says, the hints for this are given in the Chumash already. In the end, Ishmael did teshuvah. How did he show his teshuvah?
Came to the burial.
Yeah, what happened? At the burial of Abraham, what happened? What was the whole problem with Ishmael? Ishmael was the firstborn to Avraham Avinu. But why is Ishmael so upset? He says he should be the firstborn. Even until today, I think there should be the firstborn. Even to the extent that in the Quran, the Akedah, although they know, he knew exactly what's written in the Chumash, Muhammad, In fact, his first teacher, wanted to become a Ger Tzedek, was a Jewish rabbi. But then he rejected, had his own illusions. And I don't know if it comes from Muhammad himself or the people who edited the Quran shortly after his time. What did they do? How did they describe the Akedah of Yitzchak?
There was the Ishmael.
Yeah, they said the one who was offered up by Abraham was Ishmael, and Ishmael actually gave his life. What's the basis today? You've got to understand a bit what's going on in the world. What's the basis for suicide bombers? It's developing so strongly amongst Islam. Why? You know why? Because of this. Because they say we are the firstborn. Ishmael claims he's the firstborn, and he did Brit Milah more than Yitzchak. For Yitzchak was easy. Yitzchak Brit Milah when he was a baby of 8 days. It was easy for him. Ishmael says, for me it was very difficult at 13. And I like pleasure. And he had the terrible pain. So I'm greater than you, he said. And therefore in the Quran it says that he was offered up as an offering to give his life for faith by Avraham Avinu. And therefore every suicide bomber is following the way of his spiritual, his forefather, the founder of Islam. The founder of Islam is Ishmael. Ishmael, he was willing to give up his life because he knows that in death he'll get the greatest reward. So they changed the text to what's written in Chumash. Like today, on the Har HaBayit, they're beginning to strengthen their claim there was never a Temple of Solomon. And like most of them say, the lies that they say, I mean, are enormous. In any case, they go on with it. Like the peace partner of Israel today, Abu Mazen, the Palestinians, that his doctorate, he wrote a doctorate to prove there was no Holocaust. You know, I mean, which is just recent history, and there's so many records, but for them it doesn't mean anything. If they think they're trying to spread the lie that the Jews are fascists, like the Nazis, and there was never a Holocaust, they only invented it. So they say the same thing about Akedat Yitzchak.
Why
so therefore, I just want to keep therefore they're willing to give up their lives. They say it's the greatest ideal. And they're given the greatest reward also, because the paradise, the Gan Eden of the Quran is 70 most beautiful virgins. So that takes sort of the imagination of especially teenagers. And they're not married yet, so they're filled with strong desires which have transformed the imagination to, have such a harem, and they know they're going to get it if they'll give up their lives and kill a lot of the non-believers. So that's their Mesirut Nefesh. But the more religious ones amongst them, they've been saying, we're doing like Ishmael did, do the same. And therefore they claim that's the Lechem Yerushalayim. Why they're so keen? Why is even the Sultan who built the mosque on top of the place of the Beit HaMikdash? Because he said, it's our holy place, although the real holy place is Mecca and Medina, but they say this is holy because of the willing offering to be slaughtered for the faith in one spiritual God by Avraham Avinu. That is the basis of ruling the world with Islam. That's what lies behind it. So all these things are mentioned, all these aspects are mentioned, 15 evil things that Islam is going to do to the Jewish people before the Mashiach comes. So, you have any question on this or comments?
I have a comment. A few weeks ago, I was in the business area of Tel Aviv. I was walking by, and this person bumped me on the shoulder, and he turned and he said, "Slicha." He kept walking, and I was in shock.
Yeah.
And lo ma'amin, in Yerushalayim, where there's like the most concentrated Datiim, Jews, like religious Jews, I've never in the streets someone said Slicha. I was in the business area in Tel Aviv. I would walk in, the people would be like, Boker Tov, Mashumcha, like I always say like even Baruch Hashem. Here in Yerushalayim, I don't understand. All this, what the Rav was explaining, we should be the ones setting the example.
Mm-hmm. You know what they say, that if you come from abroad especially, and you're learning Ivrit, the first words you learn are Todah, Vavakasha, and Slicha. Thank you, or you say please, or you say I'm sorry. Yeah. But when you become Israeli, when you forget the use of those three words, that's what they used to say. Of course, we have to change it. So that's it. We've got to learn. That's exactly what it says here. That even people who know, who've learnt halachot and learnt also hilchot derech eretz, but they don't keep them. They become rotten. Any other comments?
Question.
Yes.
How is the number 15 connected to Yishmael again? I didn't understand. 15 steps of Tumah of Yishmael before Mashiach. I didn't get this grasp so well.
So you went over. That's the other sheet. If you look at look at that sheet, it brings here. We went through it in the last year. 15 things, which I'll just say a few words of it. 15 things which the Bnei Ishmael are going to do in Eretz Israel at the end of days. End of days, at the time of the Mashiach. The first thing is, they will claim to have new borders for the land of Israel, the Jews here, and the Bnei Ishmael will say they are living on occupied territories which belong to us, and they will desecrate the holy places of the Jews and take them over for themselves. They'll specifically occupy and take over any strategic positions in Eretz Israel and say this is ours. And they'll even try to, on their maps, you won't see the name Israel. They'll say it's all ours, belongs to us. Then it says they will increase using all types of lies to say that this land belongs to us and not to the Jews. And they spread them all over the world. And the Jews are, with false basis, claiming it's theirs. And then say, I won't go into all these points, it takes too long, but also they will use arrogance on the highest level. They'll use all sorts of, try to get leading positions amongst the nations of the world to make the Jews in Israel into demons. They will sign different peace agreements, but they'll tear up the paper. It will be meaningless. In fact, it's got, one of their principles is, whatever agreements we made with non-believers, that means those who don't believe in their version of Islam, that you can just ignore whatever you've signed on, whatever agreements. Then it describes later on that they'll build their temple on the place where our temple stood. So there's 15 different points which we see happening in front of our eyes. And they correspond to the 15 inner corruptions of the people of Israel, which we have to put right. But to understand more deeply, what's the significance? Why 15? What's special about 15? That'll lead to the next year.